Solo leveling stomps every other shonen anime out there. Watch this clip to know what I'm talking about.
Waiting for your king, are you? How can you be certain he'll make his return? Knight Commander Egress, you are a warrior. Will you let your blade rust in this crumbling ruin? Or will you rise above that fate and serve me? Arise. From now on, you are simply Egress.
This is the moment when he becomes the Shadow Monarch. The second Shadow Monarch, to be more specific. Manhwa readers, you know who you are. For anime watchers, you know this takes place at the season finale of Solo Leveling, right? This brings me to my main question. What makes solo leveling so addictive and groundbreaking in the power fantasy genre? And how it redefined this category as a whole? Okay, most of you here may not know what a power fantasy is, and I'll explain it to you in just a moment. Now, take a story and add a main character to it and make him overpowered, or make him go through steps of becoming overpowered, or OP for short. That's a power fantasy. Prominent examples are Overlord, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, Eminence of Shadow, Cautious Hero, The Misfit of Demon Academy, Mob Psycho 100, One Punch Man, and so many other anime. If the hero-heroine is superpowered, he/she gets a unique set of problems addressing those skills abilities that will eventually help progress the story. Alright, so how does solo leveling fit in the trope of power fantasy? Well, it's a slow progression because Sung Jinwoo, the main hero of solo leveling, is actually so weak that he is referred to as the weakest hunter of all mankind at the beginning of the anime. Yikes! You wanna know how he got that name? Jinwoo is actively looked down upon for being useless during the series' hunter raids. Though he's meant for combat and isn't a healer, his powers are initially so weak that he's borderline normal. In the world of solo leveling, only humans who can biologically access magic are qualified to become hunters, and even then, their abilities make them best suited for certain roles. Jinwoo was able to qualify and become a hunter, but as a mere E-rank hunter, his talents are far from impressive. This sees him and several far more powerful hunters nearly meet their end in a double dungeon during the first few episodes of solo leveling. Jinwoo is unable to be of any real help, and as the slaughter begins, he looks back on his lack of success as a hunter. The fear is palpable, and it makes for a far more relatable narrative to show someone who is essentially the power level of the audience thrust into these dangerous circumstances. After all, even pathetic foes such as goblins pose a threat to him at first, showcasing that he truly was worthy of his ignominious nickname. It's after he undergoes a transformation after the double dungeon incident that he accepts his role as the player, and seeing his previous teammates die, that Sung Jinwoo goes through an awakening. Despite that, he still hasn't reached the apex of his abilities, but it's the real starting point of his journey of becoming the strongest hunter. The show has elements that follow video game and RPG logic, just like many modern isekai anime. Due to Sung Jinwoo's awakening, he can level up and build upon his stats like an RPG character. This involves beating powerful enemies and completing quests, some of which are daily missions for him. These aren't merely optional, however, as failure to complete certain tasks every day causes a penalty. These dangerous penalty quests are set in a desolate desert where Jinwoo has to survive for hours on end, all the while contending with vicious monsters far more powerful than him. Even after his awakening, Sung Jinwoo isn't fully convinced of his powers, and for good reason. He is still faced with the arduous task of leveling them up, which he does by taking on dungeons and hunter raids that offer him a challenge. Many of the dungeons and monsters that he goes up against are enough to take out whole squads of D and even C rank hunters, yet he's able to defeat these threats by himself. Even then, he frequently doubts his own abilities and still has to fight tirelessly for every victory that he gets. While this can be seen in other anime with overpowered protagonists, solo leveling makes it work by keeping Sung Jinwoo's feet somewhat on the ground. Here is another thing that differentiates Sung Jinwoo from other power fantasy protagonists, is that he has a rather unique outlook and set of morals at the beginning of solo leveling. Many of the other hunters are far from heroic, and they're quick to turn on each other and leave their comrades for dead in order to get loot and credit. The entire hunter industry is rather cliquish, with hunters forming rivalries and having little in the way of loyalty beyond what they're being paid. In the 5th and 6th episodes of the show, Jinwoo allies himself with a hunter raid party, taking on a dungeon guarded by a giant spider. These individuals leave Yoo Jin-ho and Sung Jinwoo to be killed by the spider, with their plan being to ambush the dungeon boss and take all the loot for themselves. Of course, Jinwoo takes the monster down by himself, and he's quickly forced by the system that gives him his powers to do the same against the strike force that tried to kill him. Aside from the hunters, other enemies in solo leveling are vicious monsters and seemingly demonic foes who threaten to plunge the world into darkness. Defeating these enemies is paramount to the survival of humanity, and it's why the hunters exist in the first place. By giving Sung Jinwoo enemies of that nature, solo leveling automatically raises the stakes, which in turn leads fans to want Jinwoo to reach a place where he becomes overpowered. It's rewarding to see Jinwoo's hard work pay off, especially compared to other anime heroes who are comparatively handed their victories. So there you have it. Here's everything you need to know about how Sung Jinwoo redefined the power fantasy genre, and I can't wait for season 2 to come out, where his second awakening will be explored. Catch you all on the next video where we'll be discussing more about Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan.